MyFantasySportsTalk.com.
Orlando broke the news to me this week that you guys want more fantasy baseball, more fantasy baseball, more fantasy baseball. So I'm like, okay, we'll do that. So we're going to go ahead.
Yeah, no, I am not kidding. I was actually surprised. When I was watching that Game 6 Spurs and Rockets, a friend introduced me. He's like, yeah, he writes for My Fantasy Sports Talk. And they were familiar with the site. And they said, well, we're familiar with the site, but we kind of stopped keeping up with it. And I asked why. And they said, well, first of all, you called My Fantasy Sports Talk. We're like, there's no fantasy news coming out. I was like, well, we do fantasy news. But one of the main complaints, they wanted more baseball. And they weren't too happy that
Of course they did.
Yeah, they want more baseball, more fantasy. And they were kind of pretty pissed that they got more WWE articles out of us rather than baseball. So I was like, you know what? I'll take it to the head honchos, but I have no control over a lot of that stuff.
Orlando, you're hanging out in the wrong bars, man. You're hanging out in the wrong clubs, whatever you do. But no.
How do you think I felt? I kind of had, I was kind of surprised.
Hey, no, I love it. And I love it that they watch and keep up with it. And guys, let's be honest, we cover fantasy when it's relevant. We cover a ton of NFL fantasy. We cover really a lot of NBA fantasy. And baseball season, it's almost like it's about this time or maybe even June before everything else settles down to really settle into baseball. But okay, you asked for it. I promise you guys, we're going to go heavy fantasy baseball from here on out because I got a championship to win and I want that to happen. So I need you guys to help me out. And we're going to start this week. Dale Casey is going to help me out with the first question. I got offered Aaron Judge for Josh Donaldson. I have Donaldson. He's about to come off DL. Who will have the more points the rest of the season? So let's go first of all to our baseball expert, one of our baseball experts on the panel today, Dan. And I know this is kind of trending off of our topic about the Yankees from last week, and you said that trend is about to spiral. Ryan agreed with you. You were pretty much saying the same thing there. So is Aaron Judge going to be part of that as well, though?
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Judge has put up phenomenal numbers in, his first so many games. And I definitely think he's going to be a solid pro, a great player who can put up numbers. But he's not going to put them up at the same rate that he is currently. So he's still a rookie. Pitchers are, getting their scouting reports. They're going to learn how to pitch to him. So I do expect his numbers to kind of downturn. I personally am a Josh Donaldson owner, and I'm excited to get him back from the DL. So, listen, Josh Donaldson is always going to hover around 300. He's going to smash 30 home runs. He's going to get close to 100 RBIs. He's set in stone. You know what you're getting with him. Aaron Judge, you're going more for a potential play. So I would keep Donaldson if I were you. Right now, too, I mean, that's a pretty decent offer. But his value in fantasy right now is low just because he's coming off the DL. So I would stick it out. I would ride with Donaldson. If you're worried about this season and the rest of the season's points, Donaldson is going to be your pick.
Ryan?
I agree with Dan. As far as Aaron Judge goes, as Dan said, the pitchers are still trying to figure him out. Out of the 39 hits that he has this season, 14 are home runs. So he's been basically boom or bust, for the lack of a better term, per game. You look at his game log, there's 1 for 4s with a home run, there's 2 for 4s with 2 home runs. So he's either hitting the long ball or he's not. And that's too much of a chance to think that he'll put up better numbers compared to Josh Donaldson, who I think is probably the best third baseman in the game. He is on the DL right now, as Dan said. But once he comes back, that's a jolt to a team's lineup. I would go with keeping Donaldson and letting Judge stay on the other team.
Orlando, what's your take on these guys? Whether Josh Donaldson, who is a lot of preseason polls and people predicted that he would be in the AL MVP race, or would you go with the big new monster in Aaron Judge?
Long term, I'll stick with Donaldson. I guess I would see Aaron Judge as a type if you're going for that kind of risk-reward type of play. If you want to go for those kind of points or chase kind of those home run type of points, I mean, obviously Aaron Judge is kind of guy, especially if you have a pretty stacked lineup, or if you need to make a move, maybe your season, I know it's still early on, but maybe your season hasn't gotten off to the start you want to. Maybe you kind of need a boom like that, like Aaron Judge, and willing to take the risk. I could see someone making that move. But if you're pretty set, you have a pretty good rotation on your lineup, and your record's pretty good overall, I would sit on Josh Donaldson.
Well, I'm going to play contrarian to you guys then, just for an opposite opinion. I think coming off the calf injury with Donaldson, he will, my numbers were on par exactly to what Dan said before. I think with the injury missing about a month of the season, he's going to hit probably about 35 homers, around 95 RBIs, in that neighborhood. You know what you're going to get with Aaron Judge, and I'm going to agree with Ryan, it is boom or bust. The dude's playing incredible right now. He's a monster, and he's hitting fifth in that Yankees lineup, so there's always going to be that RBI potential. I say right on the back of the big new monster. That's my opinion. So Donaldson is probably the safer play. Like I said, he was predicted by a lot of people to be in that conversation for AL MVP going into the season. None of that's really changed. He's going to do what he does, but we don't know about Aaron Judge. I would say ride with it. If you had the foresight to draft him or pick him up early, then I would ride with him. Or if I'm in the shoes of Dale Casey, I would trade for him. I know it's scary, but that's what I would do. So just play contrarian for you guys. So and cloud your mind, Dale Casey. So good luck to you. Let us know how the trade went. Let's move on and talk about the next one from Cole Beacon. Who is a guy or guys that are great stash players? A couple of guys on waivers in my league are David Dahl, Drew Smiley. Is it Smiley, Dan? How do you pronounce it?
Smiley. Yep.
Smiley, yeah.
Like you're always smiling.
Yeah. I just thought that was too obvious. Smiley. J.A. Happ, Colin McHugh. Any of these guys worth grabbing and stashing? Cole Beacon, Dan. And of course, I guess when you listen to my response, this is more about guys who are on the free agents wire right now in our league. But I think what he's looking for is guys in the DL right now that are worth grabbing, waiting it out, and stashing until the time when they're back fully healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I like your list. I had a couple of these guys. I dropped one recently just because half of my team was injured, so I needed the space, and that was Drew Smiley, who I dropped. He's a decent guy, but he might have a 4 to 5 ERA, so holding on to him might be a little iffy. David Dahl, I'm a big believer in. I actually have him in a couple leagues that I'm holding on to him. He was a late call up last year, but hit 300. Has some power, has that RBI depth, and playing in Coors Field in Colorado. The air is going to let those balls go a little bit further. So I like Dahl a lot. A guy, I don't know if he's going to be available in your league, but wasn't named, that I am keeping my eye on is Tyson Ross, starting pitcher who's with the Rangers now. He's been with the Padres the past few years. He's expected to come off the DL at the end of May. This is a pitcher who has sometimes a sub-3 ERA. He'll get you a strikeout an inning. So with low ERA, the potential for some wins with that Rangers lineup, that's another guy I would consider stashing along with Dahl. But it's a pretty solid list. Just to touch on some of the other ones, Colin McHugh, I know a lot about him being an Astros fan. I'd be a little wary of stashing him. You don't know exactly when he's going to come back. And the Astros I have a feeling they're going to be making a move. So Colin McHugh might be involved. So he might be heading out of Houston. So I would monitor his situation before picking him up.
Ryan, who are the guys that may be on the DL right now that you would consider grabbing and stashing?
J.A. Happ is a guy that I would consider stashing. Last year with Toronto, he had a fairly decent year, an underrated season. Season that he was once a Philadelphia Philly, I believe, moved from Philly to Toronto. That's a guy that I would pick up and stash. Could be like a starting pitcher 3 or 4 that could get you that middle of the week dependent start that so few pitchers really offer in fantasy baseball. So J.A. Happ would be that guy for me.
Well, again, I thank you guys, as I've been telling you for weeks, for submitting the questions and helping me out, because you get me looking pretty more in depth at the free agent wire. So my response to Cole is one of the guys I think who you were looking for, Ian Kennedy, today, because he could start back early as Saturday, and I've lost 2 of the last 3 weeks after talking all that noise, I think. Dan started the downhill trend for me, I think, and then I lost last week, so I've just been too stagnant in my lineup. But picked up Ian Kennedy. He could start as early as Saturday, and I think he'll put up average or better than average fantasy numbers, so I think that was worth picking up. But a couple of the other guys, I made another couple of moves today, so watch out my FantasySportsTalk.com Fantasy League. Your leader is back. I've got a cortisone shot, so to speak, and I'm on the rise, but I think I made my 7th, 8th, or 9th acquisition today. But guys that were available in free agency, not necessarily on the DL, but available in free agency today, is I picked up another Happ, Ian Happ, outfielder for the Cubs, and he just called up a few days ago, and this is kind of a temporary play, but he has 4 hits, 4 RBIs, and 2 homers, and 10 at-bats, period, through 3 games. I'm going to ride that wave until it flatlines, so we'll see what happens. And Joe Madden has hinted that he's probably going to stay on the squad. He's probably going to stay up in the big leagues. Another guy is I picked up Jose Barrios. Is it Barrios or Barrios, Dan? From the Twins.
It depends who you talk to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's one of those ones that go either way. But I picked him up, recently called up on Mother's Day, had his 2017 debut, shutting out the Indians, which is a pretty decent offensive squad, only allowing 4 base runners in 7 2/3 innings, off 2 hits and a walk through 104 pitches, and 71 of them were strikes. So we'll see how the rest of the year goes with him, but his 2017 debut was pretty good, worth 27 fantasy points, so I'm going to ride that wave until it's over too. This is tough for me, guys, because there's so many baseball players, and you talk about AAA level, AA level, single A level. It's very tough. It's very tough, and I'm behind the 8 ball, but I'm making moves, and thanks to guys like Cole Beacon, I'll be right there at the top facing Dan in the championship of the MyFantasySportsTalk.com Baseball Fantasy League. I promise you. Let's move on to the next question. John Tresbish. And this is what I talk about, those minor league prospects. I looked at this question and I'm like, what the hell? How am I supposed to know? I can only get to so many Redbirds games per year, guys. But anyway, what prospect not named Mankata currently in the minors will make the biggest fantasy impact this year? Comes from John Trebesh. So help him out, Dan.
I love this question. This one drew my eye right away when John submitted it. I'm in a dynasty league where we actually play minor league players, and it's probably my most favorite league of any sport, of anyone. It's just one league, and it's deep. So a couple guys that instantly came to my mind. I'm going to give you 3. One I have on my team, and that's Josh Hader. He's a starting pitcher in the Milwaukee Brewers organization. He originally came from the Astros. He was traded midseason a few years ago. He's touching high 90s on the gun. He's struggling a little bit this year, but he is playing in Colorado. So with the high elevations, the ball tends to carry a little bit more. He's got about a 4 ERA right now, but when he comes up, I think he's averaging 11 or 12 strikeouts per 9 innings, which if it's a strikeout league, you're going to want pitchers that can make him miss. So he's a guy to definitely keep your eye on, Josh Hader from the Brewers. Another guy is Lewis Brinson, an outfielder from the Texas Rangers. He's crushing the ball in AAA right now.
Check him off my list. There you go. Stealing my thunder.
327. I think he's got 4 or 5 home runs. He hits a lot of extra base hits. Definitely a guy. If the Rangers can find a spot for him, that's the big issue. I think he would be already be up right now. But they have so many outfielders when you look at Shin-Soo Choo, Carlos Gomez, another young guy, Nomar Mazara, Joey Gallo. So they got to find a spot for him. Choo's going to get hurt if he hasn't already. Gomez, I think, actually just went on the DL, so you might see him come up, be called up pretty soon. And then the third guy is Reynaldo Lopez, another pitcher who's in the White Sox organization. He came over from the Nationals in an off-season trade. He's got a mid-3 ERA, but he's another guy who can throw it high juice on the gun, and he's going to get you those strikeouts. So expect him to be called up soon as the White Sox start to come back to life in the standings, dropping down even more.
Ryan, we may be putting you on the spot. I'm not sure you were even privy to this question beforehand. I got a chance to study it up. But
no problem at all. I'm good. I got one.
That's why you're here, man. That's why you were the host of the Thomas Take. Go for it.
So, this past offseason, my favorite baseball team, the Boston Red Sox, made a big trade in which they acquired Chris Sale. And in that trade, they traded Yoan Moncada to the Chicago White Sox. They also traded a starting pitcher. That starting pitcher's name is Michael Kopech. Now, right now, he's 2-2, wins, losses in the minor leagues, AAA, AA. But the White Sox are so bad that I would not be shocked if they were 30 games below 500 at the later portion of the season. But Michael Kopech could get called up early. This guy throws straight past 106 miles an hour, 107 miles an hour. He is opening a lot of eyes around the AAA ranks. And he was definitely a guy that I was excited to see debut as a Red Sox, but sometimes when you want a player, you have to give up a player. And they gave up Moncada and Kopech and I believe 2 others. So maybe he won't make it to the major leagues at after the All-Star break. I would say more maybe August or September. It could be a late addition to a team that could be a phenom late in the season.
There you go. A lot of different names, and as I said earlier, Dan kind of stole my thunder on one of them. I had 2 guys on my list, Dan. You stole one of them, Lewis Brinson. Because to date he's hitting .336, on base percentage of .414, slugging percentage of .533, 36 hits, 4 homers, 15 RBIs, 14 walks, and 5 stolen bases in 27 games. 6'3", good speed and a good eye. Former first-round pick by the Rangers in 2012. So he was one of them. Definitely think he's a high prospect. So I guess the only other thing I have to offer to you, John, is Christian Walker right now. The Reno Aces, which our man Dustin Brown may know a little bit about. But he leads the Pacific Coast League in RBIs with 42, and he is second in home runs with 10 through 37 games. He also just hit for the cycle Saturday night, so he could be making enough noise for the D-backs to give him a look really soon. So there's your names, there's your guys. Appreciate the question, John Trebesh. Let us know what you think. We'll keep an eye on all this. Keep submitting fantasy baseball questions because, as Orlando said, that's what you guys want this time of year. It's going to be a long, hot summer. So let's submit those baseball questions and get into it. Help me win that championship over the much favored Dan Chalk in the fantasy league.
For the full podcast, check us out on myfantasysportstalk.com, YouTube, iTunes, and SoundCloud.